that basically Ed Sheeran ripped off the melody, the chord progression of Let's Get It On. What better for a criminal defense lawyer to react to than more music news? Today, let's talk about Ed Sheeran and Let's Get It On and that lawsuit. The family for Marvin Gaye, also known as the estate, that's what you would read in the newspaper, something like that about now, is suing or has sued Ed Sheeran for thinking out loud. They have alleged copyright infringement that basically Ed Sheeran ripped off the melody, the chord progression, the rhythm of Let's Get It On. And me being a hobbyist musician and knowing a little bit about chords and progressions and things like that and rhythm, this is really interesting to me. And I was going to actually bring my guitar in here and break this down, but I actually found a YouTube video that is going to do it better.
Organizations have been reaching out to me because the Ed Sheeran Marvin Gaye lawsuit trial has begun, and it's a copyright.
I think it should be noted that this case actually has already been tried, went up on appeal, and then is now back down for trial again, which kind of explains or maybe leaves you questioning, well, how does that happen? So a trial was had, testimony was taken, and a jury made a decision that Ed Sheeran did not infringe any copyrights, did not, in other words, rip off Marvin Gaye and Let's Get It On. And then the family of Marvin Gaye decided to appeal that decision, and the Court of Appeal found some issue or some mistake that happened at the trial court. And they said, because of this mistake, because of this issue, we need to send it back down for a new trial. And so Ed Sheeran and the Marvin Gaye family are basically starting from scratch in New York.
Infringement case based on whether Ed Sheeran appropriated music from Marvin Gaye's Let's Get It On in his song Thinking Out Loud. Now, 4 years ago, when it first came up, I made a video about it, and I did a comparison of the verse of the songs, which are similar. Let me play that for you.
Baby, man, trying to hold back this feeling for so long. Heart could still fall less. Heart at 23. And if you feel like I feel, baby.
I got to say that whenever I first heard this, I thought, oh, wow, that is exactly the same. But we're going to get to a really interesting explanation. I'm glad that someone with some real knowledge of music theory actually explains that for us.
I'm thinking about how. Come on. Oh, come on. Woo. Let's get it.
Okay,
so you can see how scary similar these two, at least parts of this song, are. But Rick here is going to make a really good differentiation between the two.
What I did between the two tracks is I took the Marvin Gaye track and I transposed it down a half step so they'd be in the same key. But other than that, as you can see, the grooves and the vibe of both songs are pretty identical. I also did an analysis of the melody in this section. Let me play that for you. Let's take a look at bar one of Thinking Out Loud.
And if you can read sheet music, I mean, bless you, because I don't have a clue what any of this means. I do know what the 4/4s mean. I do know that. But other than that, I'm pretty lost. And we can see something in it does give us chords here where he says he took it down a half step to put it in the same key.
Look at the melody here. So it starts on F sharp as compared to Let's Get It On, which starts on F sharp. But the rhythm of the melody is completely different. You can see that, obviously. There are 16th notes.
It's not obvious to me, but I'm glad that Rick thinks it's obvious to the rest of us.
Here it goes F sharp, E, D. This goes down to F natural here. This bar is different. The G to A is different. In the next measure here, measure 3, very different rhythm, different notes. Got this triplet figure here as opposed to these 16th, 8th, 16th. This has this interval jump. It's nothing. The melodies are nothing alike. I mean, you could say here in bar 5, you have this 16th note on the and of 2, F sharp to A, and then you have F sharp to G to A here. I mean, but that's a stretch. There's no comparison between the two melodies. Okay, now here's where the song differs. Marvin Gaye's song doesn't really have a chorus like the Ed Sheeran song. The Ed Sheeran song actually goes to a different section. Let me play it for you.
I'm thinking about
Chorus.
people fall in love in mysterious ways. Maybe just a touch of a hand. We are falling in love with you every single day. I just wanna tell you I am. So honey now.
The Marvin Gaye song just stays on that same chord vamp and has the chorus over it.
What I think Rick is saying here for the rest of us is that Marvin Gaye's Let's Get It On plays the same chords in the same order throughout the entirety of the song, and there's no deviation from that. And that's not a knock. That's just how some songs are made. Whether they be Ed Sheeran has songs that has the same chord progression throughout, whether it be the verse or the chorus. Same can be said in country music, rock music, blues music. There are plenty of songs where the chord progression just doesn't change. I mean, one of the greatest guitarists of our history, Eric Clapton. If you listen to Cocaine, it is the same riff through the entire song.
So it's a completely different chorus. So the question here is this stolen from the Marvin Gaye song? Do they have a claim here? This is a really tough area. If you define the song as the melody and lyrics, I would say that the melody and the lyrics are not similar in the verse part, because definitely in the chorus, they're not similar at all. If you consider the song to be, let's say you have the verses and the chorus and each are weighted 50%, is Marvin Gaye entitled to 25% of the money of the song, right? Or splitting the verse, since the melodies are not the same, but the musical content is really borrowed from Marvin Gaye's. It is. I mean, there's just no question about it. The tracks are almost, you really can't tell where one changes to the other one, except for the snare is louder in the Ed Sheeran one. That's the only claim they have, is actually to the musical backing track. And is that a valid claim?
I think it should be noted that the reason I made this video in the first place is because Ed Sheeran actually took the stand yesterday. And he talked about, or he was cross-examined on the fact that at a show, he did a mashup of Let's Get It On and Thinking Out Loud. And he was the lawyer for the Marvin Gaye family, said, isn't this proof that you ripped off, to make the language simple, that you ripped off the Marvin Gaye song? And Ed Sheeran went toe to toe with her and said, that would be pretty dumb if I knew that I ripped off Marvin Gaye song and then deliberately did a mashup at a live performance with it. So what Ed Sheeran is trying to say is that, no, this is not something that I deliberately ripped off.
Valid claim if you're going to define it by that. Now, the Blurred Lines case wasn't even close.
By the way, Blurred Lines was an earlier case where he was sued, and Ed Sheeran was sued and won for allegedly having a song that was similar to another. I don't quite remember the details of that one, but that's Rick is talking about an earlier lawsuit for Ed Sheeran.
Those songs were not even close. and they lost the case. I'm not sure what's going to happen in this. Do they owe them some money because it was borrowed from it? Probably, yeah.
The thing is that Ed Sheeran, from every report that I've seen, Ed Sheeran has testified that he didn't borrow anything from Let's Get It On. Now, whether or not that's believable to a jury, we'll have to wait and find out at a verdict.
They probably do. But, where do you draw the line? So many things are derivative now. Do you copyright the arrangement? If you're going to go by what's happened in the past with the other lawsuit that happened, then this one is definitely going to come out in favor of Marvin Gaye's estate, I would say. But they're not entitled to all the money from the song. They're entitled to a small portion of it, in my opinion. I'm just one person. Like I said, a lot of people were reaching out to me for my opinion on this since I made that video 4 years ago. That's my opinion. So if they want to use any bit of this video, feel free to.
So that gets us to where we can wrap this up. This is going to, at least in my opinion right now, based on the little research that we have at this point, or the little testimony that we have at this point, because we're only on what would be the end of day 2 of trial at this point. It's going to, I think, come down to credibility of witnesses, namely Ed Sheeran, and whether or not the jury believes that he took inspiration, or took more than inspiration, just took the melody, the chord progression, what have you, from Marvin Gaye. And if you've stuck around for this long, I really appreciate it, because as a hobbyist musician, and extra emphasis on hobbyist, there are only so many chord progressions and only so many rhythms that can be created, especially whenever you're someone like Ed Sheeran, who is working with a single instrument, and he uses his instrument, especially at a live show, to create his rhythm, his backing track, his loops, his chord progressions. As a result, a lot of things are going to easily sound like something else. There are a lot of country songs that have that same G, C, D, or E, A, D progression in them, because that's just what works with music theory, and they have the same picking and strumming pattern. What comes to mind right now is, if you know how to play Should Have Been a Cowboy by Toby Keith on a guitar, guess what? You can play Travis Tritt's I'm Gonna Be Somebody on a guitar. And maybe I'm showing my age just a little bit and letting everyone know that I was born and raised on 90s country. If you know G, C, D, and can throw in an E every once in a while or something like that, you can play darn near any country song. But that's my 2 cents. Ultimately, I believe this case is going to come down to the credibility of witnesses, especially the credibility of Ed Sheeran in front of the jury. And if you've stuck around this long, make sure that you leave a comment for other topics, whether they be in the news, related to legal, related to criminal law, related to other things, music, that you want me to react to. And we'll try and fit that in on the next video. Thank you for sticking around until the end of this video. If you found the information in the video helpful or informative or entertaining, do me a favor. Click the subscribe button and ring the bell notification so you can be a part of the first 1,000 subscribers to this channel, and you'll get notified every time we post a new video, podcast, or other information that you may find helpful. If you have questions about a criminal case and you want to talk to me, then scan the QR code over here or check the link in the bio below. And if you have questions about an expungement, need an expungement for an old case, scan this QR code over here or use the link that's in the bio below. And If you want to watch another video that I've made, just click this one right here.